him up. All right, good morning, everyone. This is Ashley Vaquero with the Office of Charter Schools. I'm going to take roll real quick. Terry Stoops. John Eldridge.
Here.
Bruce Sprang. Rita Hare.
Here.
Hilda Burley.
Present.
Shelley Bowler. Cheryl Turner.
Here.
Todd Godby.
Here.
Eric Sanchez.
Here.
All right. We have a quorum.
You didn't say my name, Ashley.
Oh, I didn't hear you. Okay. Oh, Lynn Kroger. Sorry about that.
Here.
All right, great. We have a quorum and we can get started. Chair Turner.
Okay, good morning. Welcome to our April meeting. Let's see, I'm not sure who's in person. So would somebody who's in person please lead us in the pledge?
Hilda Perlay will.
Hilda.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
States of America,
and to the
and to the
republic for which it
which
stands,
stands
one nation, under God,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for
and
all.
justice for all. Thank you. Ashley, could you please put up the ethics statement and the mission?
Yes. Oh, hang on one second. There we go.
Okay, this is very small.
Let me see if I can make it. There we go. That work?
The ethics statement of the Charter School Advisory Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the Advisory Board. Does any member of the Advisory Board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be our duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. The Charter School Advisory Board mission statement. The Charter School Advisory Board works to ensure the existence of high-quality charter schools in North Carolina. We need to approve meeting minutes we need to approve the agenda, and we also need to approve the meeting minutes from March. Can I get motions for the two?
Would that be individual motions?
You can do it together.
Yes, please.
Either way.
I approve that we approve them. I move that we approve the minutes for the March meeting.
I second that motion. Rita
Being
Hare.
properly moved and seconded, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, a motion for the March minutes. Are there any changes to the March minutes?
No, if anybody has sent them to me, I've already incorporated them.
This is Rita
Okay,
Hare.
can I get a motion?
This is Rita Hare. I move that we accept the March minutes as written.
I second Hilda Perlay.
Being properly moved and seconded, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Ms. Vaquero, we are ready for the Charter Schools Annual Report.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully my little remote thing will work here. Let's see. Maybe not. All right. This is Ashley Vaquero with the Office of Charter Schools, and I am presenting the 2021 Charter Schools Annual Report. If we take a look at this is a report that we give every year. We're going to talk about the background of the report, charter school authority and oversight, the Office of Charter Schools, accountability and our performance framework, charter school growth, demographics, access, and academic performance, impact on local districts, and then we always finish up with innovations and best practices. The report is posted on eBoard. There we go, good. Okay. So the, as we know, the charter school community in North Carolina was established with the Charter Schools Act in 1996, and there are 6 stated purposes in legislation for a system of charter schools, as you can see here on the slide. That includes improving student learning, increasing opportunities for all students, encouraging different and innovative teaching methods, creating new professional opportunities for teachers, providing parents and students with expanded choices, and holding the schools accountable, established under the Charter Schools Act accountable. And throughout this report, I think you'll be able to see evidence of all 6 of these stated purposes in different areas. So this report, the Charter Schools Act directed that the state board shall report annually on the impact of charter schools, on student academic progress in charter schools and best practices, and then any other information the state board considers appropriate. So this is that report. It's due to the General Assembly on June 15th. So this Charter Schools Advisory Board will hear it today. It will go to state board in May and then in June before submission to the General Assembly. All right. So if we, before we kind of dig into specific data, if we kind of just take an overview of the current state of charter demand. Last year when I gave this report, we were remote. Students, for the most part, were all remote. And now we are navigating a new phase of the pandemic, and thankfully more of a sense of normalcy. Students have returned to buildings. And as that has happened, charter schools have faced the same type of challenges that traditional public schools have faced, including school health and safety, staffing shortages, and of course pandemic-related learning loss. But if we look at charter school demand throughout the pandemic, we saw that in the 1920 school year, over 117,000 students were enrolled in charter schools. We saw that throughout the pandemic, when traditional LEAs saw enrollment decreases, charter schools saw an increase. And in the 2020 school year, we had over 126,000. And then with this current school year, we have over 130,000. This is in line with data we see that there are increases in, I guess what you would call alternatives to the traditional LEAs, private schools, home schools, and charter schools. We're seeing increases in all of those. Self-reported data from the charter schools indicates that 73% of our charter schools had a wait list this previous admission cycle. Of course, this is self-reported data, so oftentimes students could be on multiple wait lists, and especially in our larger LEAs with a large charter school choice system. All right, so if we look at charter school oversight and authority, the Charter Schools Act assigns the State Board of Education the sole authority of charter school oversight in North Carolina. So that includes approval of charter applications, amendments, which we call in statute as material revisions, and the renewal of charter agreements. The legislation sets up the Charter Schools Advisory Board, this board as basically the board that assists the state board in making those final decisions, and then your board is staffed by the Office of Charter Schools. So taking a look at CSAB, this board was established in 2013 and was created by statute with 4 express powers and duties. The first one is to make recommendations to the State Board of Education on the adoption of rules regarding all aspects of charter school operation, to review applications, which you all know is a big part of what you do, to make recommendations regarding charter schools, including renewals, non-renewals, and revocations, and to take any duties or responsibilities as assigned by the State Board of Education. Without this board, it would be very difficult for the State Board of Education to be that sole authority and make those recommendations and take those votes on charter school matters. if we look at our membership, Lynn will be leaving us after this meeting, so I have put in a vacancy there so that the report will be as up to date as possible. So going forward, we will have 2 vacancies, 1 in the House and 1 in the Senate. We have 4 House appointed spots, 4 Senate appointments, and then we have State Board of Education, the superintendent's appointment, and the lieutenant governors. And there was legislation last year floating around that was going to try to stagger terms. That didn't end up getting passed. So as you can see, the vast majority of this board will either end their term or in that first four-year cycle term in 2025. All right, so our office, the Office of Charter Schools within North Carolina DPI, Department of Instruction, we are staff to the Charter Schools Advisory Board, and obviously also to the State Board of Education. Our mission is to sustain the success of quality charter schools through operations, compliance, and support. We are currently we are fully staffed right now with 6 consultants. Technically we have 5 consultants right now. We have a new consultant that will be starting next week. We have a shared program assistant and an executive director. So among those staff members, we divide our responsibilities into different workflows. And legislation, the original legislation that established our office had 7 specific duties. Service staff to CSAB, provide technical assistance and guidance to charter schools, which you'll see through our workflows such as performance framework, such as our stakeholder support, those sort of workflows. Provide technical assistance and guidance to nonprofit corporations seeking to operate charter schools within the state, so that's our application process. Provide or arrange for training for charter schools that have received preliminary approval, that's our RTO and planning year process. Assist approved charter schools in coordinating services within DPI, assist charters seeking to participate in the North Carolina Pre-K program, and other duties as assigned by State Board. So the way we kind of make that work with our staff members is to break our work into 10 workflows that you can see here. Each, again, we have 5, 6 when we're fully staffed staff members, so everyone leads at least one workflow. Most of us more than one workflow, and then we also assist other workflows to make sure that everything is covered. North Carolina, for these workflows, currently we have 203 charter schools. We have 204 as of last week. 8 schools are slated to open in the fall. We have 12 schools in the ready to open process. So those are all being supported by our office, and then of course our applicant boards that we are supporting, which fluctuates each year, but the average number since charter schools began, the average number of applications each year is 33. I dug into staffing last year, and I will continue to report on that. As you can see, our staffing as it pertains to charter school growth, staffing has remained pretty much flat since 2009 when I started collecting the data on this, when we had 96 charter schools and now 204. I'll use different, in this report you will see that some of the data has 204 charter schools because of the fact that as up to last Friday we had 204. This report also tries to focus on the 2020 school year, which is what our 2021 report is on, in which case some of the data will have 200 schools, which is what we had last school year, just in case you're curious about differences. All right, so that gives a little brief overview of our office. There's more information within the report. In addition, we have our NC Access team, which is 4 staff members. They do not work on those workflows I just mentioned. They work exclusively on the NC Access program. You hear from this team pretty frequently when they bring recommendations in front of you for subgrants. And as we know, this is the North Carolina Advancing Charter Collaboration and Excellence for Student Success program. That was a $36.6 million public charter schools program grant from the U.S. Department of Ed. Annually, the program holds a competitive application process to award those subgrants, And currently they're in the 4th year implementation. And 61 charter schools located across 28 counties have received sub-grants. And of course, the main purpose, although there are many that are kind of discussed in the report, is to better serve educationally disadvantaged students and get them opportunities in high-quality public charter schools. As we enter this 4th year of implementation, the team is starting to collect more data on impact, and they have found that the sub-grantees have enrolled nearly 1,500 additional educationally disadvantaged students and increased the racial diversity of their charters through the first 2 years of the program. Sub-grantees are implementing proven strategies such as providing transportation and lunch to remove barriers for students. We know those are 2 key practices for providing access to charter schools. And in addition, sub-grantees must utilize a weighted lottery, which you all are pretty familiar with because we have those amendments almost every month. For the main kind of programs of NC Access, the big kind of guiding program is the Fellows Institute. And this is, the goal of this is to provide 160 participants with a fellowship practice or opportunity. They basically come together for really great PDs, for training and different types of supports to meet those goals that they've outlined in their sub-grant applications. In addition, the NC Access program partners with traditional school leaders, so they open up that fellowship to leaders that are involved in the Restart model, traditional LEA schools. And then at this point, they've had 153 fellows completed or in the process of completing that, including 5 Restart School fellows that have joined from traditional district public schools. In addition, they have a visiting fellows program, which is great, and this basically allows leaders from schools that do not meet the criteria for being awarded a sub-grant to still participate in that Great Fellows Institute. And ultimately, this will expand the reach of the program to an additional 40 school leaders over the course of the 5-year grant. And then finally, they have, NC Access has implemented what's called the Educational Equity Aspiring Minority School Leaders Program. And the purpose of this program is to recruit, select, and train a cohort of 20 aspiring minority school leaders over the life of the project. Currently, 12 aspiring leaders will complete the program in May of this year and will be fully credentialed by the Appalachian State University to serve as principals in North Carolina charter schools. Next CSAB meeting in June, we will have a presentation about this program, be able to meet these these leaders, and we'll have a lunch also with this group. So that will be great for the CSAB to learn a little bit more and meet these fellows. All right, so switching gear a little bit, we're going to go into accountability and our performance framework. Charter accountability is found in a variety of different kind of guideposts. We've got statute, rules, and policy. We have our charter agreement, academic monitoring, performance framework, the renewal process, and then of course closure and termination if necessary. So at the conclusion, again, this report is reporting on last school year. At the conclusion of the previous school year, we had Grandfather Academy voluntarily relinquished its charter. It was one of our oldest charter schools. 2 planning schools relinquished charters prior to opening. 2 planning schools had their charters revoked prior to opening. And then additionally, SE May Kaiser Fox's charter was revoked and that school closed after 3 years in operation. Charter terminations and closures fall into 4 categories. So we have relinquishment, which is when a board voluntarily gives up its charter. Assumption, which has only happened once. Non-renewal, and then revocation. So since 1998, we have had a total of 83 charter terminations. And you can kind of see those broken down. Here, the majority is relinquishment or revocation. All right, performance framework. So each year, if you are a charter school leader, you are well aware of the performance framework. This is our kind of accountability system that is in line with the state board's strategic plan and their goal of increasing the number of charter schools meeting or exceeding academic, operational, and financial goals. So the performance framework, we began this in 2014, and it reports on 46 operational, financial, and academic indicators. Not all indicators apply to all schools. For example, there's a whole renewal section which will only apply to our charters that are in renewal. And then some things like EMO reporting or previous performance scores, those sorts of things might not be applicable to certain schools. If we take a look at the last 5-year trends, you can see that there has been a steady increase of meeting or exceeding all financial and operational goals. There was a slight decrease last year, and that was due to 2 schools not meeting the financial compliance. This is our, this kind of breaks down the operational measures, which is the largest aspect of the performance framework, and in the 2021 performance framework, we had 100% of schools either exceed or meet. So exceeding is they've met 100% of their indicators, and then meeting is they've met between 80 and 99%. All right, so taking a look at charter school growth, as you saw and as we discussed earlier, we are at 203 schools. We began, the charter school community began in 1997 with 33, and now we're over 200. For this, looking at 2021 in particular, we had 6 new operating schools that opened this year. We have 8 that are scheduled to open this upcoming fall. We had 21 charter applications received, 3 accelerated approvals, so those schools go into the cohort that open next fall. We had 5 standard timeline approvals and 2 pending applications. So at last week's state board, the 7 recommendations that you all made to the state board for approval, 5 of those were approved, and then 2 of those were sent back to this board because they did not meet approval by the state board. And per charter policy, if the state board is going to deny an application, the policy asks them to return it to CSAB for a second reconsideration. So we will have those 2 applications back before you at your May meeting. That's Wayne STEM and what's the other one?
Greenville Prep.
Thank you. I was forgetting it right now. So those 2 will be back before you in May.
What was the second one?
Cheryl, can you say that again?
Greenville Prep.
Oh, Greenville Prep. That was the one that came before you as Phoenix Academy,
Yeah.
the kind of multi-generational one,
Okay.
and they changed their name to Greenville. That's right. All right, so if we look at application trends, as I stated earlier, the average applications received each year is just under 33 applications. And the average percentage of approval is just over 25% of yearly applications. All right, taking a look at our charter school students. As of March 10th, 2022 of this year, so this school year, there are over 130,000 students being served by charter schools. When we get further into the report, we'll talk a little bit more about those specific numbers and what percentage of the total North Carolina ADM that represents. But as of now, that represents 8.6% of the public school population, and an increase from the 2020 school year, which was just over 126,000. If we take a look at the ethnic and racial diversity of public schools, we have the charters that you can see in the green on there, and then the traditional LEAs are in the blue. And while they are fairly similar racially, you can see that the main difference, the biggest kind of disparity we see between enrollment in charter schools and enrollment in traditional LEAs is in the Hispanic subgroup. And we've continued to see that. This is our percentage of students with disabilities. So those, as you can see, it's remained pretty steady between 9 and 10%. It's usually around a little bit over 10% most years. Our percentage of English learners is continuing to increase. We had 3.56% in the 2021 school year. And then you can see here the EDS, economically disadvantaged subgroup percentages, and I broke it down for 2 years, the 2020 year and the 2021 year, and you can see charters and LEAs. Their charters had a very small increase, almost exactly the same for those 2 years, and then there was a drop in of almost 5%, I believe, in the traditional LEAs. This is, again, kind of a 10-year look at the economically disadvantaged subgroups and populations within charter schools. And you can see over the last 4 years, it's remained pretty steady. In the report, I talk about the change in identifying economically disadvantaged students. And in the appendix of the report, you'll also find a memo that kind of explains that in greater detail from our Department of Instruction's data analytics team. But that, we don't have that data current. That will take place, I believe, this year. So next year, hopefully we can report and see if there are any major differences now that schools have different opportunities or different ways of kind of recording that data. All right, if we look at charter school access, you can see that weighted lotteries have increased substantially. Last year we had 42 that were approved, and this year we have 71. So that has been, you know, a lot of that has to do with the NC Access Grant and that being a requirement for those schools, but we also have plenty of schools that are not grant recipients that have also implemented weighted lotteries. If we look at transportation, we continue to see an increase in the number of schools that are offering different transportation options, and especially bus transportation, which is what we like to see. Over half of charter schools offer bus transportation at this, for the 2021 school year. And then I don't have anything on screen for this, but also for our school nutrition, we track that data, and that is in the report. And we also continue to see an improvement in the schools that are participating in the National School Lunch Program. So the 2020 school year saw 73, and the following year, the 2021 school year, we had 80 schools. Or sorry, 76. All right, charter academic performance, there's not much to report on here. As you know, for the previous 2 years, legislation has held that we haven't had student performance grades released to the public, and our low performing schools, they have maintained that designation since the 2018 school year. So we are hopeful that at the end of this school year, we'll have, going into next fall, we will have new data that will give us a better idea of how our schools are doing academically post-pandemic. For impact on districts, we really focus on funding and membership. So as you can see, for the 2020 school year, the ADM accounted for 8.2% of the state's total ADM. And for this school year, it has increased to 8.8%. And you can see the allotted monetary figure on the screen and in the report. And this is just showing an increase of charter school ADM over the last 3 years since the pandemic. All right, for best practices and innovation, we decided to do it a little differently this year within the report. And I'm not going to go into all the different schools that we've profiled, but our office, several of our staff members, we get the opportunity to review portfolios of principals and teacher of the year nominees. And in doing so, it's a really good way to kind of get a better idea of what is happening on the ground in charter schools. And something that really came to light is just the fact that North Carolina charter schools in general are all about choice and what works for an individual student and an individual family. And those decisions can really be quite diverse. It might be a decision about curriculum or the environment within a school, logistics that families have to work out, like transportation and timing, wraparound services, a sense and feeling of belonging within a school, the extracurriculars or the sports that are offered, and then, of course, the staffing within schools. And so what we wanted to do at the end of the report was really profile a number of schools. We selected schools throughout the state we tried to hit every single state board region. And I think if you get the chance to review those and take a look at the different types of programs, you'll see really get a good look at the different offerings at charter schools. And something that I noticed in doing this was just the fact that something that's really interesting is the different geographic and kind of geography of North Carolina. If you're living in the mountains, you have different opportunities than if you're living in a more rural area, and those opportunities are being shown in what's offered at our charter schools, whether it's doing outdoor learning in the Blue Ridge Mountains or doing Civil Air Patrol or FFA in a more rural district. So at this time, I think that's all I have. And I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Yeah, I just had a couple comments. Great job, Ashley and Officer Charter Schools. Wonderful report. A lot of really good information in there. And again, just to point out, I know you already did in your report that charter schools have doubled since 2009, and the staff has really actually decreased from 7 to 6, and that's really one consultant for 33 schools, which really isn't enough. So just put a little plug in there that Officer Charter Schools really needs more staff to help support the growth of charter schools in the state. Also, the other thing I just want to mention is in the framework. One of the indicators that tends to not be met more often than others is the estimating the ADM to be less than 10% of what the actual ADM is. And part of that reason is really charter schools are set up to not really meet that indicator because funding is based on the first 20 days of enrollment, period. And if you don't hit that 20-day number to meet your budget, you don't meet your budget. So it really kind of forces charter schools to overestimate their ADM that first 20 days. And so it's really hard to balance the performance indicator of staying under 10%, but also enrolling enough kids so that you meet your budget. And I really think, and this is something that I've asked for years too, that it would really help if charter schools were funded the same way as traditional schools, that you get the better of the first 20 days or the average of the first 2 months. And that's how traditional schools are funded. And if charter schools are funded that same way, it would eliminate the process of having to overestimate the number of kids that you enroll in the first 20 days. So I just wanted to
We're taking
put
this
that in.
straight.
Hey, it's Jamie. Can I say a few words real quick about that?
Yes.
Okay, so we're actually working with our budget office on that specifically right now, and I think the superintendent, as well as our CFO, both recognize that something needs to change. But this is a much bigger, longer process of trying to look at how we fund all PSUs. So I would just say let's continue to be patient and know that we're working on something here at the department and trying to address this for not only charter schools, but also our traditional public schools as well.
Great. Thank you, Jamie.
Ashley, I just want to say just excellent gathering of data and reporting for this past school year. I think charters, based on the evidence that you brought forward about the programmatic diversity, and we're certainly seeing the purpose of charter schools fulfilled in innovation and diverse programs. It was really exciting to read about the various schools, as you said, sometimes based on geography determines what this school offers, particular schools, and it's just really outstanding and exciting to see the work of over 200 charters across our state. But thank you for this data, and I also think that it speaks well to the charters working through the pandemic and that performance framework and our numbers staying high there on fulfilling the framework for their performances. So that's also encouraging and speaks well for all of the many who work in charter schools across our state.
Absolutely.
And I too will add my kudos to the wonderful work that you did. Very specific, very detailed. Thank you very much.
I want to add my kudos to that as well. I appreciate seeing the data and am encouraged by the data. We get accused of a lot of things, and some of those things the data just doesn't bear it out. And I appreciate the work you've done to pull that together.
You're welcome, thank you. All right, look, we're done with questions. You are still going to be hearing from me for a little while. We are gonna go into amendments, if that's okay.
Yes.
All right.
Feel free.
Okay. So we have several today, and the first one I'm going to start with is the amendment that we had tabled from last month, and this is the merger request and an admission amendment request from Triad Math and Science Academy Company, which is the nonprofit board and charter holder for Triad Math and Science Academy, Triangle Math and Science Academy, and then the upcoming, soon to open in the fall, Math and Science Academy of Apex. And that board will be merging with the Charlotte Educational Foundation Board, which is the charter holder for Queen City STEM School. We have, you submitted questions to their board and to their office staff, their central office staff, and we have the superintendent here today, Ben Karaduman, who can answer any more specific questions you may have based on those submissions. So I'm gonna let him come to the microphone, and then if you have any questions, he is here to address those.
Thank you, Ashley. I guess I'll start. I have a couple of things. I noticed that, and when I looked at the organizational chart, it appeared that Queen City STEM maintained their board, but was tied to the superintendent and the central office. But then when I look at the merger agreement, that board becomes part of Triangle Math and Science Board. So can you explain that for me, please?
Good morning. In the current situation, they maintain their board, but there is the shared service agreement. Right now, currently, since the day they opened their doors, they are actually working with the central office. I wasn't here. That the same board, basically, they created another board. Half of the board was common board members for both boards, but all the back office and the support services have been, provided like the other TMSA schools since the beginning. Right now, what is being proposed, there won't be any, the Queen City STEM board anymore.
All right, so they will actually become part of the TMSA board.
That's correct.
One of the things I asked for and did not see in the information is what would the schools have paid as 5% if that agreement had been in effect this year? Do you know that information?
You mean the dollar amount?
Yes.
It's around 1.5 million.
For all 4 schools?
Yes.
Well, I appreciate the data the information that you submitted is very thorough. Also, you can tell you've put a lot of work into it, and that you guys have really thought this through. And so that is very encouraging. I have some concerns, not about TMSA specifically, but about how we want to look at this policy-wise. But I'll let people ask questions specifically about TMSA before I go there. Any questions?
I'm still struggling with the why. Why is all this necessary for the merger? Why?
Because think about from the points of central office, and we have the same mission, same vision, same programs and everything, and then we do everything twice, including the audit, board meetings, we try to combine the retreats and stuff. But even though the board members are, motivated with the same mission and vision and policies, at some point we struggle for them to make the same decisions. At some point we see that I told both boards, this is going to be separated, the differences. If they want us, the central office to serve as a charter, the operator, it's actually, people ask us, we are CMO, are we CMO or EMO? We are not. And are they our schools? Organically, no. We have a agreement called shared agreement. It can be, the questionable. But at some point, I am not the employee of that board. At some point, it's very difficult, and it's to create some questions and then uncertainties. So that is basically we're trying to resolve.
See, and that's where I struggle, I
Still can't
guess.
get my
Yeah,
head
is
around
how
it.
it's not an EMO or a CMO, and it's just a central office. So who are you an employee of? If you're an employee of the central office?
I am the employee of the same board. It is we have 4 DBAs, assume names. One is Triad Math and Science Academy, one Triangle Math and Science Academy, one the Math and Science Academy of Apex, and one TMSA Public Charter School, which is the central office. If you look at our audit, it's just the same organization. Money stays within the same institution, and it is called just a general fund. It is the central office audited in one column over there, Triangle in one column, Triad in one column. Basically, the central office is being, all the decisions are made based upon the same board policies, and then the board made all the decisions.
Are you also saying that you currently work with Queen City STEM?
Yes.
Although you're not affiliated? with one
Since the
another?
beginning. Organically, we are not affiliated, but, and I told them, for instance, I want to cancel this shared services agreement, and I don't want to deal with the Queen City. They said, no, you can't do this. This is our school. And I said, yes, it is our school. That was the intention for you, but we have 2 different boards, which makes it so difficult for us, If it is my school, I should be able, this Queen City STEM board, I am an ex officio board member of the TMSA board. I have a voice. I don't have a vote, but when it is this Queen City STEM board, sometimes they exclude me from their executive sessions because I'm not organically part of, their board.
The TMSA board, were they involved in starting the Queen City board? Were there shared board members, and
Yes,
that school was started
yes.
through the group? But now you're saying there's some exclusion from time to time from Queen City and TMSA?
Yeah, I mean, even the parents and the staff, we are Queen City or TMSA, even sometimes the salary scale, and then we struggle as a central office because we don't want to create 2 different policies. This is not our intention.
Is Queen City open to the merger? They invite this and welcome this?
Yes, it is in the cover letter. What happened, that issue came to our annual retreat in December, So they discussed both boards, we proposed our intention to do. Then they created an ad hoc committee, merger committee, there was 2 members from the Queen City, 2 members from TMSA. We have our general counsel and we have our bond counsel as well, since the both schools, they have separate bonds. So, it took about like 3 months to straighten out everything. So everybody agreed now, both investors and all the covenants at the bond. And they agree and they signed in the cover letter. You can see all the principal signatures and the board chair signatures as well.
Well, I guess what I hear you saying is what led to this was that Queen City STEM didn't always want to do exactly the same thing that TMSA was doing, which is my bigger concern, which is they only have 2 representatives on this board. Is this a way of silencing them, that the larger board has all the say and their concerns are not being considered?
It is not, those, the things are not really legitimate things, like for instance, we want to increase the salaries, the 3%, they say 2.5%, for instance. It is not in terms of, the mission, vision, or meeting the needs of the students, or like the curriculum and the things. It's like operational and different opinions, which is, our office mostly does the work and then bring it to the board. Now think about, you're giving like 3% increase to your one school and then 2% the other one, and then they work together at PLCs and then all those other programs. It's not easy to keep the morale and the environment, nurturing environment.
I guess my concern is that we gave that charter to that board. And while they may not always make decisions that the rest of the schools agree with, we gave that charter to that board. And my concern is that because they're not making decisions that the rest of the schools agree with, plan B is let's make them go away and make them part of us, and then they have to do what we want to do.
Actually, there's only one V, madam, it is, they really don't consider themselves differently when they're opening the school. And then if, I don't know, like I said, I wasn't here at 2014, and their first, the application was actually from the TMSA. Then later on, at that time, I think it's been advised from the CSAB or DPI, I don't know the details. So they ended up forming another, the nonprofit. They were the same people. They had like, the 9 board members, 5 of them was, the TMSA board members. And still, the 2 of them are still actually 3 of them, they're still the founding board members. They have 6 board members right now.
So the 2 board members that are going to become part of the new board or the combined board, are they 2 of the original people from TMSA, or are they 2 of the people who are from Mecklenburg County who were not part of the original TMSA?
One is from very beginning is the